Hello, here's a requestuous video. Somebody intellectually sound, physically fit, emotionally stable, that followed some form of spirituality. I've met people that had one or two of these pieces, but never all of them. Why is this? Would the ancient Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians have had more well-rounded citizens than we do? And if so, why tanks? Wow, interesting question. So, why it's so hard for people to be well-rounded as far as being balanced, intellectual, physical, emotional, spiritual prowess? I think because, and I agree, people are not well-rounded. And I think it's because people, we're growing so fast that that we, when you're growing really, really, really fast, you have a tendency to get warped, to grow one side too much. And then once that one side gets grown too much, then you would grow the other side. Like if you were to see a video capture of a fetus growing, you see their head grow, and then their head takes up everything, and then everything else has to catch up. Even if you see movies, you see stuff grow, and it's like one side goes first, and then. Or how about if you're building a new project for a country, in a city, like a new tunnel and a highway. You would build the entire tunnel, but the rest of the highway hasn't even started yet because you have to finish the first project first, and then you fill the other parts of the highway. So when you're building the tunnel, you're like overly extended towards the tunnel. So in the place we're at right now with humanity is we're all growing and learning so fast that we all kind of fall in to choose something that we're interested in, and then we just go for it. And until we get to the end of it and we're like, okay, cool, that's badass. And because we all have a limited amount of spare time on our hands and a limited life span, that we don't have the time to develop these other things. So we just go for it, go for this one thing, and then we become warped. You get all these jocks who are super, super fit, but in order to get that fit, you have to be working out all the time. And you don't have the time. You actually don't have the time to be like learning that whole time. So then you're not going to know anything. You're not going to be all that bright. And yeah, I think it was kind of, people were more well-rounded in the past. And it's because, in the past, time went by a lot slower. People, like right now, there's so much energy and there's so much new stuff happening that people are just like, almost like racing each other. We're all racing. We're all running as fast as we can. So there's not enough time for anything. So you cut stuff out and you're not relaxed. And like me, I'm the perfect example of that. I am so fired up about my timeline my timeline project is so big that the only way I'm going to actually see it grow, which is my reward, is to actually see it grow and be done with it. In a reasonable amount of time, like before my mom dies, the type of a thing, I have to be working on it all the time, which means I can't be doing anything else, which means I'm not going to be physically fit, means I'm not going to be all that emotionally fucking put together all the time, because I'm overworked a lot, and, stuff suffers if you go, and we're in the world where we're looking at the watch all the time. We're doing this. We've got to do it. Not enough time. Kind of like it's kind of like somebody who grew up with a really like Spartan lifestyle, and then all of us like in a cabin in the woods by themselves. All of a sudden, you throw them in the world, and they've got all these things, and they're just like, whoa, and they do this and they do that, and then they kind of get overwhelmed. Whereas in the past, stuff didn't change so much. So time was forever. You could do something. You could take your time. People would take their time with stuff. Somebody would be a sculptor and spend their whole life working on these things. Today we look at these sculptures. We go to like Florence and we look at these like carvings and sculptures and stuff. We're like, oh my God, who would reproduce this? It's ridiculous. Like, why would you sit in front of one piece of rock for 30 years? But, they did that back then because they weren't like in this rush, this race. They were just more, Well, number one, the different jobs were more stratified, and so if you had a job, you would just have that job your whole life, and you wouldn't have dreams of doing other things, so you wouldn't be distracted. And another reason is, in Greek and Roman times, you'd have like the super rich people, the wealthy, who never had to work. They would have all the spare time in the world to do whatever they wanted, and so they could balance it out. Like me, I would be able to balance out like if I didn't have to work or anything, and I wasn't totally rushed about my timeline. Like I wasn't like in a race to try to finish it because I wanted to see it finished and I wanted to get it out there. And it was just like my job. Then I could work on the timeline, and then I could go and work out for a couple hours, and then I could which would, balance my emotions and everything. And I would be a well-rounded person. I'd be really smart and really fit and really, all that. But I'm not like that because I'm racing, And I think for me, it's like my ego, like if my ego wasn't so big, then I just do everything all at the same time. Be like, yeah, that's my life. But I'm just too driven, I guess, to be able to handle it. Like there's too much energy passing through me. There's too much energy passing through us to be able to bottle it up, to be able to control it. So we get carried away on certain things. And so I think somebody who's like super physically fit and not all that smart just got carried away with the physically fit. And a lot of the people like who are like president of this or founder of this, really rich. You look at them and a lot of them are pretty, they're not that fit. You can tell that they've worked hard and they've made sacrifices. Those people who are really physically fit and really smart and all that kind of stuff, they've had help, like their parents paid for them and stuff, or they got really lucky and they just started making a lot of money. They were in the right place in the right time, made enough money so that they could have a lot of spare time, to do all that stuff. And somehow they just didn't get their ego involved. I think if you keep your ego out of it and you just look at everybody as being equal, then you're not going to be like racing anybody. You're racing yourself. You're just going to be doing your thing and you're going to have balance. And so yeah, I do think that Romans and Greeks and ancient Egyptians and the high order, the rich people, it was like the guy, like the king was the most literate guy, and in a lot of cases, more like in feudal societies mainly, not so much like the Roman Empire, but like feudal societies, the landed classes, those guys would be the best fighters. They could kick the ass of a peasant, and they're more physically fit because they're always fighting their fighting skills, and the peasant's just there walking around all day long and shoveling. But, the rich guy, he's all badass fighters, totally physically fit, riding his horse, really well-rounded exercises, fighting exercises. He's also the most educated because then he goes off and he studies reading and all that stuff. He's also spiritual because he's got access to all that knowledge, and so, which causes problems in a stratified society because then, since the rich people are so much more capable in all the different ways, it can make them think that they're better. Like their souls are better, especially if you don't believe in reincarnation. Like you just live here once. It's like, oh, I'm just better than you. Ha ha ha. It's not because I'm rich and I had all the time and the training. Ha ha ha. It's just because I'm better. Ha, ha. So then they're like, yeah, well, the natural order of things is to have the people below. Look at the animals. They work for us. The mules. You're just a human mule. That causes problems. We need to do whatever we can to make it a level playing field for everybody. And we can have that. If we have a strong enough GDP, anybody could be everybody. And then, in fact, in the future, everybody is, in about 100 years. Yeah, super fit. People in 100 years are going to be, like the average person's going to be as fit as the most physically fit person now. And they're going to be as smart as the smartest person now. Totally emotionally well-grounded. Because the emotional part is, there's so much energy and stuff and so much people getting carried away that it does stir up the emotion atmosphere and gets people like fired up too easily. But when everybody is calm and everybody's happy, this is why we need to have like nationalized healthcare and have everybody taken care of. Because if everybody's happy and healthy, including the animals, no animal testing, the air is the electromagnetic force field internet created by our brains and our emotions of all the animals in the world is healthy and happy. And so everybody can just be emotionally sound, Like I remember when I came back from Chile. Chile's like a, kind of a developing nation. They got a lot of problems. And I lived in a kind of a bad neighborhood. You can kind of feel the stress and stuff in the air. But when I came to America, I looked around, I could just kind of like close my eyes and just relax. It was this marked feeling I had when I first came back. It's kind of like that, it's like this actual energy in the air. And there's just so much intensity in the world now. Yeah, it can make people a little bit not emotionally imbalanced. And spiritually, if you have a lot of stupid people saying stupid stuff, the leftovers from the, dogma and superstitions of the Dark Ages that people still have now, speaking it, and, it gets them, it can stunt the spiritual peace and power, of the best of us. Just because we live in the same world. So, but in the future, I think that we will get back there. We will get there, and that's kind of like something to be said for. In the old times, when we didn't have the technology to have these aristocratic castes within society who did have the spare time to sponsor the growth of the cultural aspect of our society, and be the well-rounded people and be the guides to everybody and the example. I mean, there are a lot of times in the past where you look at your king and you don't look at some despot. You actually look at a magical person who you look up to and want to be like. Like in the past, there was this tradition ever since the Dark Age, ever since the pre-Roman times, where like the king or the whatever, if he touches you, he can heal you, and they did that in England all the way until the 1600s. The magic touch of the king, like so. It's kind of it's different levels of society. It's natural for us to have a certain class of people who are talented, who we allow to give free rein to show us what human beings are capable of. And every society has that class, the Druids and the Celts, and then you have the priests were supposed to be like that in the Christian times, and the Roman emperor, kings, gods, and all that kind of stuff. But now, we're all going to be a god. We're all going to be better than the best of them in the past, just like in the next realm, in the angelic realms. The lowest of them is better than the best of us, and so. But once we, once our growth and our change slows down a little bit, and we settle into our footsteps, and we get more well-rounded people, then we will be well-rounded. And I'd like to be well-rounded in that aspect pretty soon. Intellectual, physical, emotional, and spiritual. But, we're just in the baby stages of society right now. And you can give plenty of examples of societies in their baby stages that are very specific to one aspect. In the past in Asia they believed in reincarnation. In Europe they believe in God. It's kind of like a bunch of blind men around the elephant. Every blind man in different parts of the elephant think it's a totally different thing. Once they get their blinds off and they look at it, they see what it is. And so like in the past, people are just a lot more specified. The Spanish were the swordsmen, the Syrians were the horsemen, the Greeks were the pikemen, the Tatars out there were the Syrians were the bow and arrow guys, and just different people specialized in different things. You look at cars back in the beginning of cars in the 1900s, like the golden era of cars, because each different car company just looked different and had a different aspect to it, a different strength to it. Some of these are four-wheel drive, some of these are sports cars, but then as you get more developed, they kind of all become more homogenized and they all look the same and stuff. And that's kind of I think that's kind of where we are right now, since we're at the birth of this new society. We've just got all these people specialized in certain things, showing each other the heights of what humans can achieve. But if you're going to show the heights of what humans can achieve, you have to do that one thing and get good at that one thing, which then you're going to be sacrificing the other things. But in the future, when people know how to succeed and be badass and all these different things, the methodology of it, you do it in the most efficient way. Like you learn how to become smart by exercising and listening to audiobooks at the same time. Then, and more people get good at that. We just get all good at it, and then we get less kind of egotistical and competitive about it, and we just realize that that's just about how everybody should be, and we're just all like that, And then you look in the past, and you're like, wow, I can't believe like somebody who was like not all that fit, but he was way fitter than everybody else. And I'm like, what? I can't believe in the past people were so dumb, So yeah, that's why. But I think in the future we'll be more well-rounded for sure pretty soon.